Well, hello everyone. I hope you've had a good week so far. This is going to be my teaching on this past Shabbat's Parashah 19, which in Hebrew is teruma, or in English, which means contribution. So as it says, this is going to be about um, Israel's contributions to the Lord and what came out of those contributions that they gave. With that, let's go ahead and get into it. All right, um, we pick up in Shemot or Exodus chapter 25, um, and God gives Israel a chance to give to Him. Um, he asks them to go ahead and give whatever their heart compels them to. Now, as you read that, I mean, it's almost for pretty plain to see it's another test. God wants to see what they're going to do when they're given the choice to give to Him. Are they going to give their best? Are they going to give from their heart, or are they going to be stingy, or what are they going to do? Um, and so, um, I believe I could be wrong. I believe it's in Devarim or Deuteronomy, where it talks about that Moshe actually had to stop them from giving. It may be later on another parashah in Shemot, but he actually had to stop them from giving. They were giving so much that he had to stop and say, "Okay, that's enough. It's too much." Um, which is a good thing. That I mean, they passed this test with flying colors. Then, if that's what happened, and they passed this test with flying colors, um, they gave truly out from their heart. I mean, just gave and gave and gave and gave and gave. And so uh, this was one of the examples when Israel was at its zenith, at its prime. I mean, at exactly what God wanted them to be. I can see God looking at them and just smiling from ear to ear, so to speak. I mean, just happy, full of pride as a father, looking full of pride as a king, looking at his children, at his servants, and just very happy. This is what God wanted. He wants to be happy with us. He wants to be pleased with us. He wants to smile and look on us with pride that a father should feel towards, and a king should feel towards his children, his subjects. And so this is one of those times when Israel was really made the father very happy, um, because it was their heart. It wasn't so much, guys, what he gave, what they gave, excuse me, what they gave. It was what their heart, the condition of their heart at that time. And the condition of their heart at that time was a thing of beauty to God. So there are several different categories of items he needed them to give, and then within each category there were several items. Okay, and I should have added one more line here. So it should be gold, silver, bronze, and then blue, purple, and scarlet. The next line. Then fine linen and goat hair, ram skins dyed red, seal skins, and acacia wood. Oil for the light, spices for the anointing oil and for the sweet incense, and finally onyx stones and setting stones for the ephod and for the breastplate. And so these are all the things that God asked for. And the reason why he asked for them was because he was going to build a mishkan or a tabernacle to dwell in the midst of his people. That was his goal. Now, it's interesting because what kind of tabernacle and menorah or tabernacle is created depends on what the people give. What kind of ephod and breastplate is made depends on what the people give. So all of this was dependent on what the people gave. Now, if they gave stingily, they gave with a stingy heart, then they wouldn't be able to do much. Matter of fact, God may not even had them do anything with it, depending on what they did. He may not accept their gift. Remember, let's think back to Cain and Abel, right? So remember that story, very familiar story. We talked about it several months back, where God rejects Cain's offering but accepts Abel's. And it's implied the reason why is because Abel gave his best, whereas Cain just gave whatever he could give. Okay? And so this is kind of a similar test here. When God says, "Hey, give to me what your heart compels you to," what are they going to give? Are they going to give their best, or are they going to just, here you go, here's something I found laying around? Um, and so, but thankfully, Israel had a true heart that moment, and they heart that God pleases God, and they gave the best they had. And not only did they give the best, they gave abundantly. Um, okay, so the Mishkan, or also known as the tabernacle, um, is actually a representative of Yeshua. And I want you guys to remember, as we read through the Torah all points to Yeshua, points to Messiah. Okay, not only does it point to Yeshua the Messiah, Yeshua the Messiah himself is a living Torah. He follows the Torah inside and out, to the letter and in the spirit of it. He follows Torah perfectly, and as our example for how to follow Torah. Whoops. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so for the tabernacle, God is first, he instructs them on how to create the Ark for the Covenant, the table that hold the showbread, and the menorah. So, a couple times during this narrative, God tells Moshe to make it to exactly how he was shown on the mountain. Okay, so God is an exact God. He is a God of exactness. Everything has to be done exactly the way he specifies. And his ways are perfect. And so if you don't do it his way, it's not going to be perfect, it's going to be substandard, and it's not going to please him. And so we have to do, when we do anything, it should be what God wants and exactly how he wants it to be done. Now, what Moshe was shown was how to create a replica, a shadow of the heavenly tabernacle. So the earthly one is a copy of the heavenly tabernacle. Okay? And it is not as good as the one, it's not as perfect or holy or good as the one in heaven. However, it is a place for him to still meet with Moshe, and it is also there to teach the children of Israel about him and to give hints, especially later on, once Israel understands more of what God is going to do. God likes to teach object lessons. He likes to use things visually. He likes to use objects to teach his children different things. And so whenever you see God command to do things, don't just look at the surface of what he's asking them to do. There's usually some other deeper significance behind it or underneath it. And so it's the same thing with the tabernacle. It wasn't just there as a means for God to meet with Moshe. It was also there to teach a lot of lessons through all the various objects, especially the ones contained in the holy place in the Holy of Holies. So, having said that, what we're looking at in this chapter right now is three pieces that were the furniture or the objects contained in the Holy of Holies and in the holy place. And these three, especially the ark, have a lot of theological significance to them. So, the ark how was he made? It must be made from acacia wood. Um, Now, acacia wood, in case you haven't don't know, acacia wood, the tree is a tree. It's the bark is almost pitch black. There were thorns that grew out of from all over it. They were anywhere between 3 to 5 inches long. Um, Even the smallest branches had them. Uh, and as a matter of fact, it was probably the wood from which they created the crown of thorns that was placed on Yeshua's head um, during his crucifixion. So they were very large. Um, they were very long. They were very sharp. They were able to pierce through a lot of different things, including human flesh and even human bone. Um, so they were very, very sharp. So anyways, they were to take this acacia wood. They were to overlay it with pure gold. Now you're going to see in here where they go back and forth between pure gold and gold. And so here it's be overlaid with pure gold. I think the only reason why certain things did not get overlaid with pure gold was for strength. The things that had to be strong were just overlaid with gold, whereas those what was decoration was pure gold because it didn't have to be a strength member for any of the construction. Okay, so was overlaid with pure gold inside and out. Okay, it must have been quite an object to behold. It must have been absolutely brilliant whenever light was cast on it, and have a crown of gold around it. So if you're seeing here, that crown of gold, a very kingly, if you think about it, very kingly type of imagery there. Okay, so these three, um, objects, these three pieces of furniture in the holy place and the holy of holies were furniture befitting to be placed or surrounding a king. They were kingly. Um, they were elegant. They were royal type furniture. Okay. So the ark had 2 rings on either side. Both of those were made of solid gold, not pure gold, a solid gold. So they had some strength to them. And then they had 2 poles of acacia that were also overlaid with gold, that were put permanently in the rings. So, permanently inside the rings, so that they were never left the ark. So it was almost as they were one. The ark and those uh, poles were one object. Okay. So the testimony of the covenant, the 2 tablets, were there to be put in the ark. And so, um, once they completed that, they were also to go ahead and create an atonement cover for it. Now, the atonement cover was the part whenever the high priest came in once every year, to offer atonement for the entire nation of Israel. Blood was sprinkled on the atonement cover. It was entirely made of pure gold. The cover itself was no wood at all in it. It was one solid piece of gold. And not only was it just a flat cover, it also had 2 cherubim, that were also made of gold, that were at either end of the cover. They face each other, and their wings kind of rose above the ark, kind of shielding over it. The cover and both the cover and the cherubim were there to. They were actually created one hammered work. So it wasn't like they took pieces here, took pieces there, and combined them together. They were hammered out of one block of gold. And then obviously the covers they put on the ark, and then the Ark of the Covenant is safely put inside. Um, in Middle East, in ancient Middle Eastern culture, whenever a covenant was made with between either kings or with a god, that covenant was put before um, that god um, as a sign or remembrance as um, of the covenant made with that god. Now, in their culture, it was to remind the god of the covenant that God made with the people. In this case, it's not that way. In this case, the ark is there to remind the people of the covenant they made with God. So it's kind of the other way around. Okay, so God says he will meet Moshe above the atonement cover, but from between the cherubim to give commands. If you think to Ezekiel, yes, Yecheskel, and his image of seeing God, God rode above and on the cherubim. Okay, and this is kind of like almost like a same kind of thing here, where God is above the cherubim between the wings and speaks with Moshe there. Okay, now the whole picture of the tabernacle here, God wants a tabernacle amidst his people. Okay, now we will see later on that that God gives his spirit to the elders, and he also gives his spirit to the prophets at time, so that they can go ahead and do his work. Um, God dwells with his people, but not in them. What the tabernacle points to is not just God create a tabernacle that the people dwell next to, but God's ultimate goal was to make the people, each one of them, a tabernacle themselves where the Spirit of God resides. Okay, so uh, the goal here of Torah is when Yeshua, who is a living Torah, who perfectly fulfills and follows Torah, not abolishes, fulfills, um, becomes that living tabernacle. He becomes a living menorah. He becomes a living table. He becomes a living version of all of these things represent something about Messiah. And Yeshua um, is the one who embodies all these elements. He is the tabernacle. He is the Torah. Um, he is the people of Israel. He himself represents all of that and fulfills all that God expected. And then not only does he fulfill all that God expected and all that Israel had failed to achieve, he also then takes our punishment for us not fulfilling it ourselves, for us not obeying it. And so he leads by example. He fulfills all that God requested of Israel, and then he takes the punishment for Israel's failure. Um, so it's an amazing thing to think about, and you get so much more involved in that. But when you're reading this, and I hope you do, like I say at the end of every one of my videos, I hope that you read through this portion. A lot of people will skip over and say, it's just a bunch of measurements and a bunch of details, and it's not really all that interesting. It doesn't really matter much, but it does matter a lot. God does not do anything just to do it. There's not he doesn't say, let's just go, I got up this morning, I think we're just going to go ahead and do this today. Everything has a distinct purpose for why it's being done. And has meaning to it. And so when you're reading through Torah, even the minutest of details has significance. Okay. So then we get to the table of the presence. Okay. It holds the bread of the presence, or also called the showbread. Now, it doesn't say that here, but actually, no, it does. Excuse me. There are 12 fresh loaves put out there daily, one for every tribe of Israel. Okay. The table itself is again made of acacia wood, is overlaid with gold, with a crown of gold around it, and then also with its four rings of gold for its poles to be carried. Um, so I guess you're kind of understanding here that the priests, even the priests, were not to directly handle the ark, the uh, the table. Um, the only thing I think they could handle was the menorah, and I could be wrong with that. But they carried it with poles, so they would not directly touch it, especially the ark. They were not allowed to touch it. As a matter of fact, they weren't even allowed to look at it unless it was the few priests who were in charge of putting it in the Holy of Holies and then immediately leaving that place and leaving the ark there. They were not to enter back in. Um, okay. Um, so again, the 12 loaves, one for each tribe of Israel, um, represents. So let's look at it in terms of Messiah. Messiah said, "I am the bread of life." Okay, Yisrael, the 12 tribes of Yisrael, are supposed to be the bread of life to all of humanity. They were supposed to, and are still supposed to, supposed to spread God's truth, God's law throughout the earth. And that's always been their charge, and still is Israel's charge. And so each one of them was supposed to be used of God to be bread to the earth. And notice also those loaves were changed out daily. Now again, that detail was not included in this portion, but they were supposed to be changed out daily. God does not want staleness with us. He wants us to be vibrant, fresh. He wants our faith to be dynamic, and He does not want us to become stale. Because stale bread does not carry the life it's supposed to carry. Okay, like I said before, Yeshua is the bread of life, and those of us who believe in Him, it's like we become ourselves an extension of that bread of life, to be little loaves ourselves, to feed others, to be His hands, His feet, and to feed others. Okay, so with the table, it had its dishes, pans, jars, and bowls of pure gold. It was there to offer out; those were there to offer drink offerings. Um, and so now we get to the menorah. So the menorah was probably the most complicated piece of furniture out of all three. It had a central lampstand, and then it had 6 branches that came off of it, 3 on one side and 3 on the other. It's made of pure gold. It has a base. It has a stem, cups, bulbs, and flowers for every single branch. And just like the ark cover, and just like just like the ark cover, it was to be hammered of one piece of gold. Um, the amount of skill it took for a person or 2 people to go ahead and hammer out something of that elegance from a single block of gold is very mind-boggling to me, at least. It must have took an incredibly amount of skill to be able to go ahead and beat out and shape that gold into what God showed Moshe on the mount. Okay, so again, all 6 branches have their own. They have 3 cups, like almond blossoms, with a bulb and a flower. So the almond blossoms were a flower, and it had a bulb in the middle, and they were shaped like cups, and that's what was used to light each of the candles. Now, those 7 total lamps um, are representative of God's Spirit. If you read in Revelation um, and in the various places throughout the Tanakh, God's Spirit is shown as a 7-fold Spirit, where you have various lampstands standing for a different spirit of God. So the spirit of wisdom, the spirit of knowledge, the spirit of the fear of the Lord, uh, the spirit of strength, um, and there's some others, and I'm just not seeing on top of my head. Matter of fact, nope. I'll look here just to make sure I didn't miss any. Um, so yes, so the spirit of wisdom, spirit of understanding, spirit of counsel, spirit of power, spirit of knowledge, spirit of reverence, and the overall spirit of Adonai. Um, so, um, and if you look in Revelation, it actually speaks of the seven spirits. Um, so it is backed up in Scripture. Okay. So again, each one of these pieces um, had great theological significance. Another thing to mention about the ark is also almost like God's footstool. He sits above it. It's ever before him, um, and so God is always facing or seeing that covenant. And of course, not that he never forgets it. It is his people that forget the covenant and violate it, and um, that's why it is the tablets are put in the ark itself, and the ark is ever there as a memorial to the covenant they agreed to with Adonai. Okay, so each branch has its own lamp, including the central part. The menorah have its own tongs and censers made of pure gold as accessories. Okay, so whenever they went in to service, um, they would go ahead and wave incense um, in the um, in the holy place, in the holy of holies, um, before they went in to minister. Um, So this could be a thing like, for example, it could, it can mask the scent of the sacrifices being done outside. Um, it also represents prayers. So it represents the prayers of the believers going up to God, that rising incense to Him. It actually says elsewhere in the Bible about our prayers rising incense to Him. We just talked about the seven spirits of God, and then again, it says again here that all is made according to the pattern Moshe is shown in the mountains. So it's again God being exact, God reminding him that it must be done exactly the way God showed him, which pattern it mirrors or reflects the heavenly tabernacle where God resides in heaven. Okay, so now we get to the curtains. So now we're actually getting to the curtains that actually surround um, the uh, the holy place, the holy of holies, and then the tabernacle itself, the outer court and things. So the curtains separate the holy place from the holy of holies, and it also separates the outside world from the tabernacle. So you'll see there's three colors here: blue, purple, and scarlet. These actually descend um, from the most holy being blue to the least holy being scarlet. Um, Now, sometimes in certain situations, like the parachet, which separates the holy place from the holy of holies, um, it is made of all three colors. But other times when, like coverings for the ark and for the menorah and for the table of showbread, that are actually covered in, for example, the ark of the covenant is covered in blue, meaning it's most holy. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the same thing covers the table of showbread and also the menorah. They're all covered in this blue um, cloth, not just to protect them, but it also is like it's also like signifying that, hey, these are most holy objects. Okay, so the goat hair is what makes the tent, and then the ram skins that are dyed red um, are put next, and then the seal skins on top of that. So the ram skins kind of give it like kind of like an insulation, kind of like a hard cover to it, where the seal skins are provided almost like a waterproof seal. So if it rains or anything of that nature, the seal skins are waterproof and don't allow any water to actually get into the tabernacle. Okay, so again, the ark resides in the Holy of Holies, and then facing the Holy of Holies. So if you're standing facing the Holy of Holies, looking dead at it, um, the table of the where the presence sits on the north, which will be on your right, and then the menorah sits on the south side, which will be on your left. That is the order that those sit when um, facing the Holy of Holies in the tabernacle. The tabernacle entrance itself is actually to the east, and the back part of it is to the west. Okay, so for the altar, um, it is also made of acacia wood. You know, that's pretty much the wood of use throughout the tabernacle, and its furniture is acacia wood. It's overlaid with bronze. Okay, now notice here you have another order of holiness here. Gold is used for the most holy things. Silver is used for those things silver and then bronze are used outside of the holy place and the holy of holies. So again, another order of holiness here. Um, so the altar has nets to catch ashes. It has rings for its own carrier poles that are made with bronze. Or the carrying pole. I kind of double mentioned this, but the poles and stuff are made of acacia wood and they're overlaid with bronze, very similar to the way they did the poles with the table of showbread and the ark. So the mixture of silver and bronze used for the metal portions of the courtyard, and certain parts like the pillars will be banded with metals like silver. So you have all the um, all the interlocking parts that actually lock wood to wood, or lock the curtains to the wood. Those are all made of silver and bronze, and then you have certain pillars and things that actually are banded with metals like silver for decoration. Okay, so I know that was a very short portion today. Um, there is a lot of depth into um, the parts of the Mishkan and its furniture. Um, the main takeaway here is to realize that the significance of everything, every part of that has meaning. It's not just there to look pretty. It's not just there to even to serve a physical purpose. It has a spiritual purpose to it. And so we are to look at it that way. And we went through some of that already. The order, the holy order of the gold to silver to bronze, the blue, purple to scarlet, um, and then also you have organization where the holy place is the innermost, or the holy of holies the innermost, and the holy place outside of that, and then then the courtyard outside of that, into the rest of the tabernacle. So again, you can see God's order at work. Um, the tabernacle itself inside, you can kind of look at it kind of like the holy place, the most holy place being the spirit of a person, the most the that uh, I couldn't call it spark, but that portion of us that comes straight from God, that's part of God. And then we have the our mind, and then we have our flesh. And it's interesting that where the sacrifices are offered are in that outer court, which kind of, if you look at it, kind of aligns with our flesh. So in the outer court, the sacrifices are being made um, because of the sins of the flesh. And then, of course, that aligns with man, where um, we are spirit, mind, and body. And so again, there's a lot more involved there. You can look at um, another one thing to look at and remember also is that it points to Messiah Yeshua. If you read there, for example, if you look at how some of the dyes were made, um, for example, the mollusk that they get the blue color from, the worm has to be crushed for the red um, color, all represents what Yeshua went through. He was crushed um, for that to, for our sins. Um, if you look at the gold, um, that can represent the very best, being Yeshua. There's a lot of different imagery. There's a lot of connections you can make, and we can be here for a long time drawing those connections. But I want you to see and start really getting in your mind again that when you're reading through these parts with lots of details, lots of maybe numbers, maybe things that are genealogies or whatever they happen to be, that they're important. They weren't just put in the Bible just to be put there, or just even so much for history. They were put there for a reason to make a point that's important to the rest of the Tanakh and to the Bible at large. Okay, so you need prayer, please feel free to go ahead and to email me at that email address. I'd be more than happy to pray for you or those you want me to pray for. Just give me a first name. You don't need to give me other kind of personal identifiable information. And then, you don't have to give me all the details of what's going on, but just kind of give me the gist, and I'd be more than happy to pray for you. All right. Well, I know this was short. Please go and read the portion for yourself. Allow God to show you things that maybe I even missed. So, brachot to you and Lila Tov.